the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Talking Catholic. I'm Jen Mauro, and with me as always is Mike Walsh.
You know, I hope the listeners will appreciate the fact that we're not forcing them to listen to our podcast that we record at the end of the week when we're, really beat down and tired from the week. No, we're actually recording this one on Monday morning. Oh, I'm sorry, Monday afternoon.
Monday afternoon. Anyway. I don't think we're run down. I think we're punchy.
We're punchy on Fridays?
Yeah, I think we're punching on Fridays.
That's a distinct possibility. No, but it was good. We're actually recording this the day after the Super Bowl, so I am quite tired from that, but that's okay. I'll muddle through. Was very happy with the results of it. But that also means that when this is coming out, it's already begun Lent. I've had more people this weekend ask me what I'm giving up for Lent, and I've given them all the standard answer is I'll probably figure it out on Ash Wednesday. So hopefully by the time people are listening to this, I figured out what my Lenten sacrifice is going to be. I've heard what everyone else is. My wife wants to give up her usual thing of soda. But then I quickly remind her, I was like, no, listen, if you're going to give something up, that doesn't mean you got to make everyone else's life miserable because, she's got that caffeine addiction. So we got to work through that. My son also wants to give up soda. And I was like, well, that's fine, dude. But you already gave it up. You took it out of your diet. So the only time you drink soda is when you go out to restaurants. And I'm not entirely certain that counts as a Lenten sacrifice. So
I don't think it counts.
But I actually did give everyone my answer, which was typically I want a Lenten sacrifice to be something positive as opposed to necessarily like you're giving something up, but with a positive experience. So right. I'm giving this up because now I'm going to have time to read the Bible or pray the rosary or do something to help society in some way, not necessarily just rob myself of chocolate. I'm not sure giving up chocolate is enough of a sacrifice to God, to be completely honest with you.
So let me get this straight. So whatever you give up will give you more time to be a light in the darkness of Lent. Is that what you're saying?
I can guarantee you that is not what I am saying, but that is what I hope might be accomplished by it. But okay. Yeah, I do. I think I always felt like the Lenten sacrifice. I feel like growing up in the 70s and 80s, it was always characterized as, something painful for yourself. And maybe that's true. I mean, Lord knows I'm not a theologian, but I kind of feel like it needs to be productive in some way. It can be a sacrifice, but it needs to be a productive sacrifice. Ideally, that brings you back to God and reminds you of what you are and where you still have to go. Like I think it needs to be that.
No, agreed. I was speaking to a priest the other day, and he was comparing Lent, especially the beginning of Lent, to like spring training, like you're testing out those muscles again, of dedicating yourself to what we're called to do all year anyway. But I thought that was a pretty good analogy, especially for. I
like that.
Yeah, I knew you'd like that. Sports.
I do like that. I also like the fact that it actually occurs during spring training.
That's why you brought it up. Yeah.
That's nice. I wonder if that was said by one of the good fathers that time to time, we don't need to go into that digression. My question is, did you decide what you gave up? I know at the time of this recording, it's beforehand, so you still have time.
No, I have not. I have not decided. So I feel like I got 72 hours, 62 hours. So I will decide. I'm like you. I do like to give something up, but I also like to take something on in the fact of like, if I have more of like a negative quality, then I like to try to flip that quality. Like if I'm impatient, I'd like to try to switch the impatient to patience. So let me know how that works out for me over the next 40 days. If I choose that one. I'm not saying I'm choosing that one.
Okay. If you suddenly become patient, I'll let you know.
Thank you. Yeah.
No problem.
I'm sure you'll be one of the first to notice.
Your sudden patience?
Yes.
Actually, if you'd like to hit deadlines, that would be cool. Can you give that up for Lent?
What, hitting deadlines?
Yeah, just hitting deadlines.
I hit my deadlines all the time. I just don't hit my own personal writing deadlines. Just because the paper goes out at 4 and I write my story at 3 o'clock, I don't see a problem with that.
That's because you're in charge of the publication.
That's right. So no, that will not be given up this Lent. That will not be given up.
Late deadlines?
Yeah.
Okay.
For myself.
That.
Yes.
Okay. Before we get off this topic, I do want to say that we've been on a good run of publications lately. I got a number of people who complimented me this weekend on the quality of the newspaper. So good job with that.
Thank you.
I know we talk about the newspaper a lot more on this podcast, particularly when you and I are on together. Right. But it's really doing its job. So keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, sir.
No problem.
Are you going to give more compliments for Lent? Because I like this.
That's
unlikely.
I don't know about that. That sounds unlikely. But maybe I'll be more patient for Lent. Maybe we can go with that. That'll be a first.
What if we're both more patient for Lent? I don't think the staff will be able to take it. They'll immediately realize something is wrong and we're getting a new bishop.
Oh no, Mike and Jen are being nice. Something's about to happen.
There must be something happening.
Okay. Well, I got to tell you, I'm very excited about this podcast because I've actually I've wanted to record this podcast for a long time. As the listeners know, I became a member of the board of directors of the Catholic Media Association recently, which was a humbling experience to be surrounded by people who are far better at their jobs than I am and have much longer track records in that regard as well. But it's been an eye-opening experience because it put me into contact with a lot of really great Catholic journalists. Not that I don't work with a bunch of great Catholic journalists, but ones without Jersey accents has been kind of surprising. So, last year we got to sort of be together again at the Catholic Media Association. You were there. I got to introduce you to a couple of folks. And and we got to have two of them on our pokey little podcast today. And that makes me very happy. So, Jen, who do we have with us today?
On our pokey little podcast today, we have Gretchen Crowe, and she is the editor-in-chief of OSV News, and she's also president of the Catholic Media Association. Hi, Gretchen.
Hello, great to be with you both.
Thanks for being with us. And we also have Jennifer Brinker, and she is a reporter for the St. Louis Review and the Catholic St. Louis. And welcome, Jennifer.
Hey, welcome. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be with everybody.
And mostly I'm impressed by Jennifer's setup. She is in a room right now that is properly made for either radio or Zoom. She got the headset on. She got the big mic hanging in front of her. That is nice to see.
We actually have a podcast here in the Archdiocese of St. Louis. We do not operate it, but our director of evangelization does. It's called Go and Make. So it's all about evangelization and building discipleship. So have a listen.
I will. Absolutely, I will.
I had to give a shameless plug. Sorry.
Absolutely.
That's what we do around here.
That's right.
So the two of you are, well known, certainly our Catholic journalism circles as journalists. I would say between the two of you, you're probably, in my time as within this diocese, your two names are the ones I've probably seen the most because of what your work with the Catholic Media Association. So Gretchen, in your role as the editor-in-chief of OSV News, and you're a long-standing member of OSV. The OSV News is sort of a new creation. Mm-hmm. You'd been part of our Sunday Visitor for several years prior to that. Can you tell us a little bit about your role now?
Yeah, so I have the great fortune of being editor-in-chief of OSV News, which, as you said, we're just entering our second year of the work that we're doing as a news organization. So in this capacity, I manage a team of 12 full-time employees who then individually kind of manage a whole bunch of freelancers from around the world. So we're able to provide Catholic content from around the country and around the world to more than 100 media organizations that subscribe to us. And so we have the people who follow us cumulatively is in the hundreds of thousands because we have people who read our content from around the world. So it's a very exciting position to be in. It's an extremely humbling position to be in. But it's also extremely gratifying to know that we're serving the Lord in this way of communicating the good news of Jesus Christ to those around the world through the veins of information. So sharing information, what's happening, and how help people understand that, interpret that through the Catholic lens and their identity, their faith identity. And also through formation. It's a very important part of what we do at OSV News to make sure that within the context of information, you're understanding the Catholic point of view. So what the church teaches and why, so that Catholics and readers can be better formed in their own faith comprehension and faith identity. So that's extremely important. And we also really value, as I know you all do too, those inspirational stories, those stories where you are seeing Christ active in the world today because of the members of his body and what they're doing every day through in big and in small ways. And so being able to tell those inspirational stories is really a gift to help keep us all connected in Christ.
I got to tell you, Gretchen, in addition to the great work that OSV News is doing, if anyone wants to follow Gretchen on X, she has one of the truly great Twitter accounts too. Well, now X accounts out there as well. You are a great promoter of the Catholic faith as well as Catholic journalism from all over the place. So you are on my my list of often read, and often liked, as a matter of fact. So keep up the good work with that.
Thank you.
Now, Jennifer, in your case, we specifically wanted to have the two of you on because of Gretchen's sort of international focus, and you've been working for the Archdiocese of St. Louis for 25-ish years now. 25 years this year. I would like to say that you've probably seen just about everything that a diocese in the Midwest can see, including a couple of bishops or archbishops coming through, right? Yeah, 4 bishops, actually. Yeah, in 25 years. It's been a long, wonderful journey over 25 years. So yeah. I started actually as an intern. I was still at Mizzou's J School, kind of finishing up my time there. And there was an opportunity that came open for an internship. And after that happened over the summer of 98, I went back to school, got my degree. And then the next month, Pope John Paul II came to St. Louis. So that was kind of my first big gig covering, the news of that visit. That was really exciting. And, just over the years, it's amazing to think like how long I've actually been with the Archdiocese now, and like you'd mentioned before about serving under different bishops, we've had 4 in my time, and it's been just a wonderful journey of telling the stories of the people of God. And we've, I think a lot of what our mission is fits in very much with what Gretchen described with OSV News. We're actually a client of OSV News, so we use a lot of their stories and photos that come across. But yeah, I mean, just to tell those inspiring stories and the good news of Jesus, as it's made evident through, the people in this archdiocese. So that's what I enjoy doing the most. We love to hear that.
It's important to notice we are also clients of OSV News.
I love you guys. I love you all.
And one of the reasons that we're having this podcast now is because it's Catholic Press Month. So it's good to be on with. I can't believe that your first assignment or one of them was John Paul II. Like I seriously got jealous just now. Yeah.
And it's funny because I was sharing some memories with some friends recently about that. And that visit just took place here at the end of January 26th and 7th, 1999. And I actually didn't cover any of the actual official events. Like there was the Mass at the Dome. There was a evening Vespers service at the Cathedral Basilica of St. Louis. There was the big youth rally that he had with teens from all over. And because I was one of the younger reporters, they, gave those assignments to the senior reporters. But I have to say, even just covering, they had this entire Papal Plaza area where people who didn't get tickets for any of the events, they could go and hang out and just be with one another. And there were so many just wonderful stories that came just out of that, just people who wanted to come to St. Louis or be here just to catch a glimpse of him, even if they couldn't go to any of the events. So it was just a really, really awesome time in our archdiocese.
All right, Jennifer, do not sell yourself short. You covered JP too, okay?
I was there. Yes, I do have the media pass, and it actually I didn't even have a professional photo, so I had to use my senior high school photo for the press pass. So yeah,
awesome.
It's interesting.
That's what's amazing.
It's funny you say that because I started with this diocese 3 weeks after Pope Francis visited Philadelphia. So I did not get any. I knew I was taking the job, but I hadn't come on yet. There was a part of me that was going, gee, I wonder if they're going to throw me a bone and like get me in there just to, the opportunity. No, it didn't happen.
No.
But it was a great experience, and it is awesome when a pope gets to visit. Now, Gretchen, you actually, so I read Jennifer's sort of 25-year postscript to that visit. But Gretchen, you just came back from Lourdes. I saw your most recent article about your visit to Lourdes. That was beautiful.
Yes, that was, oh gosh, what an opportunity to go over. Every year there's a convention, a gathering of international Catholic media. So that takes place in Lourdes and right across the river from the sanctuary. So it was very much a pilgrimage as well as a work event. And it was just an incredible opportunity to be there, to be at the shrine of Our Lady, where Saint Bernadette saw her appear so many times, and where she declared that she is the Immaculate Conception. It was really amazing just to be there, to be at the grotto. And I wrote that article about how your senses are activated when they're at that grotto and at that shrine, that apparition site, in a way that was kind of different for me. I have been to have the great fortune of being in a lot of very holy places. That this was different because of the way that you could so become involved with your senses, with the drinking of the water and the washing of your face and the touching of the rock where Mary stood, and just a very holy place, a very grace-filled place, and a really great opportunity to have a pilgrimage, like I said, as well as a work event. And that's one of the reasons why I love working in Catholic media, is because yes, it's a job, it's a paycheck, and that's very important because, we need to provide for our families, but it's also very much a vocation. It's very much a mission. And to be able to have those two things coincide in those ways is really incredible. And that can be in Lourdes, France, but it can also be, listening to a bishop give a talk on vocations in front of high schoolers and be just really to learn from that and be gratified from that. Or just in big or in small ways, that coinciding, I think, of what we do that comes in this form of this very special vocation is really, it's such a gift. And I was really reminded of that in Lourdes, and have that opportunity for that pilgrimage and that work event.
I know that Jen and I will often talk about the same thing, about how the side benefits that just job provides, that we can get to be. And I know Jen has said over the years that that's something that's, during those hard times, we have the ability to sort of rely on that for them. And for that matter, we also have the ability to access to go to church on a regular basis. I mean, we're right across the alleyway from the cathedral, and having that ability makes life wonderful as well. I don't know, listening to Jennifer and Gretchen talk, Jen, it sounds like conversations we have often.
Oh yeah. I mean, what also you just mentioned, Gretchen, about, you can just also listen to your bishop, some of his homilies. I'm always saying that to parishioners, like, you don't realize that some of the big events, especially, like, that it might be live streamed or recorded, and it's there's so many podcasts out there, like Father Mike Schmitz and Bishop Barron. Sorry, Mike.
We don't talk about the competition.
I know he loves when I do that. But also, just go into your own diocese and hear what your own bishop is saying. I've said multiple times on our podcast that the Chrism Mass is one of my favorite homilies for our bishop, Bishop Sullivan, to give. I never miss Chrism Mass for that. I love his Chrism Mass homilies. So I think that's important. I also love how Jennifer and Gretchen are both using the word vocation to describe what we do. That's something Mike and I have spoke about as well. But I think that what we do is a vocation, without a doubt.
Jennifer, I'm curious. You mentioned I love talking to journalists when they drop this little nugget when they talk about J school, because only us journalists know what J school is.
I know. Secretly, I was like, yeah, J school.
So for anyone who doesn't know what J school is, it's journalism school. So when you were going through journalism school, was Catholic journalism something that you were looking at? Did it really just start
Not
as a
at all.
job and then
Nope.
became a vocation?
It did.
How did you originally see yourself? Like what major newspaper were you writing for in your
it's
college?
funny. I mean, this is something I knew I wanted to do since I was in the 7th grade. I wanted to be a journalist since the 7th grade, which is kind of unusual. And I always kind of equate it to like, well, I was never really good at math. And I loved writing. So why not look at this? Nobody in my family had a journalism background at all. And so I actually wanted to be a sports reporter. I was very involved in sports when I was in high school. Mizzou has a wonderful journalism school. So I'd set out to actually do that. But honestly, this opportunity for the internship is what really kind of turned the course of my life. And I have to be very frank. I was not a very good Catholic. At the time I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic grade school, high school. We went to mass on Sundays. But I was, it was a critical time in my life, being at college, when you're away from your family. And, we see a lot of this now in our church. And this is actually something that we report on, where we're starting to lose young people, this, generation of nuns, NONES, if you will. And I was one of them. And it really was the internship that drew me back into my faith. And I think what was so wonderful about, especially those early years, is, I had an experience of the church that was just really limited to my own parish, in grade school. It was just this, little bubble. I mean, this was a time where we didn't have social media or even email at the time. So, I just only knew my little community, and being part of, these publications and being able to tell the story, these stories, it really has given me a better sense of the wider church, and how we all share, so much in common, but, the ways, our traditions and the ways in which we worship might look different. I was, in fact, last weekend, I was just at our Vietnamese parish for the Lunar New Year. It was so beautiful to see how the people there tied in their cultural traditions along with their faith tradition. And there was something really, I think, comforting in that. But just being able to tell those kind of stories, just share those examples, just really shows a bigger picture of, a larger church, and really kind of ties into that sense of the universality of our church too. So anyway.
I'm curious, Gretchen, you're a Duke alum, and I believe from the journalism school as well.
So actually, I am not a Duke alum. I am an alum. No, I'm an alumna of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill's journalism school.
Apologies.
So Mizzou got a couple shout outs, and now I have to say UNC go Tar Heels, because there's also an excellent J school there as well. And yeah, so I grew up in North Carolina. I attended UNC and graduated from their journalism school. And I'd spent a year in campus ministry at Duke right after graduation. So that's my association with Duke. Okay. So as much as, there is that UNC Duke rivalry, going back to sports, I have to admit those students wormed their way into my heart a year after graduation. But I actually used to, part of my role as I was a peer ministry coordinator is what they called it at Duke. And so I would take time every day and walk around the campus. And if I saw students or just to say hi or be a presence, it just got me out of the office space. And on game days, I would wear my Carolina sweatshirt. And so, just so they would know that there was a Carolina presence on campus. But No, but Jennifer, hearing you talk makes me think we really need to like sit down and have coffee sometime and talk about our stories a little bit more, because I think I was in eighth grade when I discerned for probably similar reasons that I was going to be a journalism major. I was, algebra was as far as I could get in math. And science was interesting, but let's face it, I wasn't going to go down that road. So, but I really loved writing. I loved editing, and so I was going to. My big plan growing up in Asheville, North Carolina, was that I was going to move to the big city of Atlanta, and I was going to get a job at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and I was just going to be a journalist there. And so then I went to UNC, and I was a confirmed Catholic. I was, always attended, with my family. But, you have to, as you mentioned, Jennifer, you have to own it, when you go to college. And so I started attending the Newman Center there, and I like to sing. And because I like to sing, I joined the choir. And I joined the choir, and joining the choir led me to be in leadership there. And I ended up being in leadership at the Newman Center in my senior year, kind of one of the main leaders, and started understanding what it meant to discern a vocational call and what that meant, and starting to realize, okay, maybe I need to be asking the Lord what his plans are for me, not just what my plans are for my life. And so I started to do that, and I started to realize that whatever direction that I went in, or I knew I wanted to write, I knew that was a gift of mine that the Lord had given me, but I wanted to make sure that I was doing it in service to the church. So I was actually at Duke University at one of our programs that we had there, where we brought on a guest speaker who was at that time a reporter for the Raleigh newspaper, which was, I think, NC Catholic at the time. It's a magazine now, NC Catholic newspaper. And actually, it was her husband who came, and he was talking about how his wife was this reporter at the newspaper, and she was serving the Lord through her mission of writing and editing. And I said, "Oh my gosh, there's a journalism for Catholics." I had no idea at 22, absolutely no idea. And so that's how I just started. The internet, thankfully, was around by then. And so I started doing some searches, and wanted to move to the DC area. So started saying, okay, well, is there Catholic journalism in the DC area? And found the Catholic Standard and found the Arlington Catholic Herald, which is where I ended up for 10 wonderful years before moving on to OSB.
And Jen Mauro, by the way, she was much like myself, a hybrid staff writer / photographer. And as you know, I have a great love for people who can do both. So,
Indeed.
Way to go, Gretchen.
I like how. No, go ahead, Gretchen.
No, I was just going to say it's an on-the-job requisite.
Absolutely.
To learn.
I have to agree with that. Yeah. If you have to wear multiple hats when you're in Catholic press, for sure.
However, one of those hats is not mathematician, as we've all learned that
Right.
Math is not a prerequisite for being a journalist.
Yeah.
Actually,
except when we become managing editor, then we have to start handling budgets and things like that, or
Yes.
publishers and stuff like that. I will say, when the business person sends me the monthly list to look through, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be can I edit something instead, please?
high school is over.
Just tell me what we need to do. That's fine. We're good.
So, how much, how similar is it working with OSV versus when you were, in the newspaper business or magazine business? Like, what kind of skills transferred, and what was a little different? Is it a little less stressful because of daily deadlines, but also you have daily deadlines because of everything you're supplying to your customers? So can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. I would say it's not less stressful, unfortunately. It's the magnitude, just because of the number of stories that we put out, and just the basic quantity of copy. We probably post 18 to 20 pieces of content a day, and that's not including photographs. So we're just talking pieces of readable content. And all of those things have to be, and I'm not editing them all, thankfully. I have a wonderful team who is very well qualified and excellent at what they do to be able to commission stories and edit them. But this type of work is certainly different from running a weekly newspaper, which is what I was doing prior to that. I was running our Sunday Visitor newspaper. I was also involved in the magazine world, also as editorial director of periodicals for a while at OSB. The paper has always had my heart, just because of my background in journalism and my love of news. But to be able to, so it's a different pace, from a weekly newspaper to OSB News, which is very much, we try to be up to the minute as much as possible. But that's the challenge for us all right now, right? Is that none of us is a weekly or monthly publication, no matter no matter what the cadence of our print publication might be. We all have websites, we all have newsletters, we all have social media. And that makes us all dailies, whether or not we're resourced for it. And so, it's one of those things it's one of those real challenges, I think, when you're talking about the niche media, like Catholic media, is how do you take what we're doing and translate it to the way in which consumers and readers are used to getting their information now, which is frequently digitally, through social media, and keeping pace with the rest of news media as it develops. And so that's a constant challenge for us. One of the things that we really try to do at OSB News is make sure that we have really good just workflow, like really good basic. Like if something happens, we know then what happens next, so that you avoid whatever types of bottlenecks might happen if you don't have a good, clear path to getting something published. So it's as much about the work, doing the everyday work of editing and writing and content creation. It's just as important, in my opinion, to make sure that you've got a really clear way of making sure that you're delivering that and really setting clear expectations to your readers about what they're going to be getting from us. So every day is different. Every day is a challenge. But every day is a great opportunity and blessing to be able to share Catholic news and information and formation content with all of our clients. And so, I think back to the days, where I was, interning, or where I was writing and taking photographs, and that's such a wonderful thing too. So there's so many opportunities for us in Catholic media that if any of you young people out there are listening and you're thinking, oh, there's a thing called Catholic media, yes, there is, and we need people to come in after us and to be learning this business and this wonderful vocation as well, because if you have a gift for writing or doing digital, doing photography or digital editing or podcasting or anything, I mean, it's really a great opportunity to share your skills in new media, like so many people have, in digital media. Please consider Catholic media, because it is not only a great profession, but it's wonderfully enriching.
And I'll make that even more in the moment. I need a photographer, and I need another communications person that wear a lot of hats: social media, photography, writing, the whole bit. So if anybody out there is interested, any of you young folks, actually any of you seasoned professionals as well, who'd like to make the move to Catholic journalism, by all means, come along. Because it really is. That is the one thing that really impressed me, because I came from secular journalism, and then I was in PR for a long time, and then I came here. All of our skill sets are necessary in this job. And if you've ever been bored at a job, come work with us, and you won't be bored again, because we'll keep you busy. But Jen could definitely use another photographer, so by all means. And I'm the backup. So
freelance writers as well. Freelance.
Oh, yeah, we need freelance writers as well. That's true.
But what I love about is that everybody on this call has worked, J school, but also, we've been in the business for 20 plus years, right? So I think one of the advantages is that we've worked in journalism, and we've seen how it's changed. Like when we all started in, let's just say 20 years ago, 20 plus, how breaking news on the internet wasn't a thing, right? You put the paper to bed, the next day it came out, and that's what it was. Now it's exactly what you're talking about, Gretchen. How quickly and correctly can we get this online and also meet our weekly, monthly, print deadlines that give the news also in a fresh way? And I think that's an advantage, to be honest, to be able to grow during the social media, breaking news, journalism circle sphere. I think that it benefits Catholic press.
So Jennifer, you actually, with that in mind, you've been a member of the education committee of the Catholic Media Association for a wee bit. And, one of the things the Catholic Media Association has been great with, and one of the reasons why I joined it, as a matter of fact, at the very beginning, is we do such a good job with, setting up webinars and making sure that we're continuing to offer professional development for folks. And, it's become a interest of the Catholic Media Association to start reaching out as best we can, or redoubling our efforts rather, maybe to reach out to universities looking for students. I'm curious, Jennifer, in your time on the CMA and in a variety of different positions, how do you come up with how do you come up with professional development ideas?
A lot of it is really from our members, people who reach out that say, I'm, dealing with this. And sometimes it could be like a small staff, and how do we juggle, different roles? How do you manage that? And actually something that came out of that kind of a discussion, we ended up doing a series with Killian Schalk, who does a lot of consulting with Catholic media on workflow. So I think that was particularly helpful for some of our members, especially in smaller dioceses where, they were just trying to find a better sense of balance, as far as the workflow and doing that kind of work. But a lot of it really is from members. And, sometimes I'm in reporter mode 24/7. That's my role, right? So, to hear ideas from people about advertising or the business side of things is great, and it's an eye opener for me because it's not something that I deal with every day, but I know that is of interest to our members. I also think those webinars in the work of the education committee, and actually Gretchen, had a very large part in that committee over the years too, and helping coordinate those. Just thinking about how our members are able to connect with one another, through the Catholic Media Association. When I first joined years ago, we would only send our editor, to the media conference every year. So it wasn't until later in my career that I actually had an opportunity as a board member to start attending the in-person gatherings that we have once a year. So I find those webinars are a great way to connect to other members of the Catholic press, to share ideas, and even, among, as having a central topic, being able to have those discussions among members, during those webinars, I think are very valuable.
I also, just to go back to Jen, Mauro, you went to journalism school as well?
Yes.
Okay. Just for anyone who's listening, you actually don't necessarily need to go to journalism school. As the only person on this podcast who didn't go to journalism school, I was a history major, wanted to be a teacher, but much like everyone else, knew I couldn't do math. And so I sort of weaseled my way into a weekly newspaper job in the very beginning, and then got a job working freelance with Gannett, and then shifted gears into public relations and went back for my master's and got my master's in PR. So it is possible to not go to journalism school and be a journalist. The other way is become a lawyer and then never practice law and become a journalist. There's a lot of those too. But you don't necessarily have to go to journalism school. You will have a leg up, but you don't necessarily have to go.
And also, you'll have a leg up if you're good at math. If you're good at math and didn't go to journalism school,
that's right. You'll have the finance beat.
Apply.
I have to say, in my experience, just over the years, in seeing staff come and go, it's really a challenge to find folks who have that balance of, their writing ability. And no, you don't need to have a journalism degree, but, just to have that ability to write, solid stories, but also to have that knowledge of the Catholic faith. I think that is a very fine balancing act, when you're looking to hire somebody. And so that I think is one of the biggest challenges. I always think there are opportunities for training and development / formation, along the way. And I experienced some of that personally too. But yeah, we definitely feel something much different than what you would experience in secular press, for sure.
I think that's. Oh, I was going to say, I think that's definitely true. And that's one of the reasons I think why the CMA and why the great work that you do with the education committee, Jennifer, is really can also be really key, is if you have staff who you need to train up and you need to form and you need to help them understand even just like what are the resources to go to check your facts. How do you use the catechism in the best way? I think there's opportunity for learning and development constantly through what the CMA offers through the webinars. But also at the conference, which has been extremely formative in my life, and I know in yours as well, Jennifer and Michael. We're happy to have you take a critical role in starting to help with conference planning and development, which is really exciting. So there's a lot of opportunities to learn and to grow, and sometimes as managers, we need to make sure that we make sure that the people who are working for us and who are dedicating themselves to this job, their roles, have those opportunities. So it's really good for us to keep in mind as well.
And with that in mind, for those who are interested, I highly recommend on March 1st, the Catholic Media Conference registration website will go live. And we would encourage anyone who is currently a Catholic journalist in some form or a Catholic communicator in any way, shape, or form, consider coming, because it is a great event. Last year was in Baltimore, and I'm using air quotes here, encouraged all of my staff to go to the Catholic Media Conference, and almost every single person went, and they really came away with, it was an eye-opening experience for a lot of them. Come to think of it, it was Jen's been a member of the Catholic Media Association, has been a member of Catholic journalism for a long time, and that was your first conference, right, Jen?
Yes, yeah. It was. It was great.
And it was great. Yeah, it was great. So I've been to a couple of them now, and yes, I am the co-chair of this year's and the chair of next year's. So if you can't make it to Atlanta this year, it'll be I should have that written down somewhere. Atlanta at the end of June. By all means, check that out. But we'll also be in Phoenix next year. So there's a possibility. I heard a rumor. There's a possibility we'd be near somewhere in New Jersey the year after that. We'll see somewhere in this region. But so if anybody's like hyper local, just wait a couple more years. But yeah, we like to bounce it around because for that reason, we want to make it available to everybody as often as possible. We know that people aren't going to be able to come every year, but we hope they will. And if you are a Catholic journalist and you're a member of the Catholic Media Association, you should really consider committee work or even going up to be elected a director. I got roped into it 2 years ago and got destroyed in an election by Paula Gwynn Grant, who is the director of communications for the Diocese of Washington, Archdiocese of Washington, and she's amazing. I had every reason to be destroyed by her, but then I got re-upped the next year and elected in, and I got to tell you, it's been a wonderful experience. I've already warned Jen Mauro that expect to be put on a few committees at the very least in the very near future.
Love to hear it. Yeah. I think the events are they help solidify like community, the communal aspect and the relational aspect among people who do the same thing. So you really get to see other people who throughout the country and Canada are doing similar work, and there's such a bonding that can happen there, even in a short amount of time, that it really, and then that makes you want to continue your work and learn more and develop more relationships. And it's just kind of this really, this great cycle.
Yep. I agree. I think some of my best relationships in Catholic press have come through the Media Association, and it's just wonderful because there's such ease in which we can keep in touch, and even outside of the conference or webinars or what have you. It's just a great way to keep in touch with one another, and to talk about ideas or things that you might be going through, or say there's something on a national level that's happening somewhere else in the country. You can call on your colleagues in that area for, hey, I'm going to be coming to cover this, can we connect, or do you have any, tips on, approaching this? So I find that, having those relationships throughout the Media Association have been just really beneficial for sure.
And I think with the partners, that attend the Catholic Media Association, because, I think last year there were members from like CRS and Cygnus and others, and I've spoken with them throughout the last year. They'll remember a conversation that we had, and maybe getting young people involved in their organization, and they'll call me up and say, "Are you ready to jump on that yet?" So and some of those are across the world. So I think those relationships can be so beneficial in so many different ways.
So I spent, about 2 or 3 minutes actually researching the two of you. And, as Jen Mauro well knows, I do almost no prep for our podcast. I really enjoy winging it. Jen does great prep work. So just to let you know, Jen is completely prepared for this conversation. I, however, was just winging it based on the fact that I've been in the same room with these people a couple of times. I'm sure I'll be fine. But as I was going through everything, I didn't realize, Gretchen, that you are a published author of like actual books. I was like, I had no idea. I'm looking through it, and I was looking through your litany here, and they're beautiful. They're fantastic. Like you have 2 books on the Rosary, and at least that I found anyway, and another one on a true story of murder and a mother's forgiveness. I'm like, this is outstanding. I feel like why do you not have a Catholic murder podcast? This is great.
Well, it's, I was thinking one of the benefits really of working at OSV is because we don't just do news media, and magazines. We have a full publishing house as well. And so we publish books, 30, 40 books a year. And so I've had the great fortune of being part of those teams that's looking at acquisitions of potential books, potential manuscripts and things like that. And every once in a while, there's something that will come along, or I'll have an idea or something, and I'll say, "Oh, I think this could really be a great opportunity." And so the first was a book called "Why the Rosary? Why Now?" So why should we pick up the Rosary and pray? And kind of a defense of that. Of praying the Rosary, and trying to be an encouragement to Catholics to pray the Rosary and get to know it a bit more. So there's lots of anecdotes and data in that book that I hope will inspire hearts to pray the Rosary some more. And then the second one is praying the Rosary with St. John Paul II. So, just looking at his reflections on the various mysteries, and of course the luminous mysteries that he put forth, and exploring those a little bit more. And that's actually meant to, whereas Why the Rosary, Why Now is more of a book that's not really a prayer book. Praying the Rosary with St. John Paul II is more of a prayer book. You pray the mysteries, you can read the reflections and pray as you go along, and you read through that. And so that's a really nice book. And then the third one that came out just last year, or a year ago now, gosh. Is Legacy of Mercy, which I worked with a mother who is currently living in Columbus, Ohio, who lost her son to a very, very violent murder just off campus at Franciscan University back in 1999, Brian Muha. And he and his roommate were murdered terribly in kind of a random act of violence. It was a theft and a housebreak. And Rachel, who is perhaps one of the most inspirational people I have ever met. They hadn't even found her son's body by the time she was standing up in the middle of a prayer and holy hour time at the church at the Franciscan, and said, "I forgive these young men." They had him in custody. "I forgive these men for what they did to my son." And that forgiveness, the ripple effects that act of forgiveness has had over the past 20 years has been astounding. Just not only in the people that she's affected, and then who have then gone on to forgive other people in their lives and achieve reconciliation with people they hadn't spoken to in decades. She's got so many stories of how her one act of forgiveness went on to then change the course of the lives of other people. But Rachel herself went on, moved to Columbus, or she was in Columbus, but she started a center for young people who were impoverished, who weren't being cared for, who had nothing to live on. And that center, she still runs to this day, and it's expanded to a day school. And she is serving kids in the inner city of Columbus who basically came from the same demographic background as the two people who killed her son.
Wow.
So it was her decision to stop the cycle of violence by starting this center and being able to serve these inner city kids. She is an incredible inspiration, and it was one of the great gifts of my life to be able to write that book about her story and share it with the world.
Oh, that is absolutely beautiful. I hadn't heard that story before. And so now obviously I'm going to have to get your book, which is available for anybody who would like to in the osvcatholicbookstore.com. You can go there and get it. Yes.
Thank you.
And as well as the Rosary books as well.
We actually just featured that book in our last issue of the Catholic Star Herald as part of a possible reading material for Lent, since it is so much about forgiveness.
Oh,
So.
that's great. Yes, that's nice to hear. Thank you. And I think you can't help but be really moved by Rachel's story. I was the conduit for this. It's her story. I was just the vehicle. I was just the kind of the person who would put it on paper.
Well, there's a lot of stories out there that people write and make money on, but it's wonderful when you hear a story like that being made that, really can make its mark in the world in a very positive way. That has nothing to do with book sales. Well, though that being said, I hope you get lots of book sales out of it. We're doing our best. Very quickly, we only have like 4 minutes left of the podcast. I did want to ask you, like the two of you, what you thought about the future of Catholic journalism. Do you think we're in a good place? Do you think we need to grow? Do you think, like, what changes would you like to see? Maybe starting with you, Jennifer. You said loudest, so that's why I picked you on you.
I think the opportunities that we have to share the good news have changed in a great way, compared to when I first started. We barely had a website, when I first started. And now the ways in which we can communicate the good news to others have grown. My hope is that, the work that we do continues to thrive and to grow. And I find, especially for those of us involved in diocesan press, having a bishop and leadership who really understand and appreciate that, and communicating, to the faithful through these stories, through, catechesis, formation, and thankfully the four that I have served under in my time here in St. Louis, all in their own unique ways have appreciated that. So we've actually, been able to continue with the publications that we've had over these years. I know some dioceses are not in the same position, but my hope is that, we continue to hold on to that and understand the value of the work that we do in communicating the good news of Jesus to others.
Amen, Jennifer. How about you, Gretchen?
What Jennifer, I think we're in a time of transition. There's no doubt right now in Catholic media in this country, as kind of the more legacy newspapers, a lot of them are shutting down. Magazines are coming more into more popularity. But the work of sharing the good news of Jesus Christ, no matter the vehicle, no matter the container, always remains. And so, we have to shift. Okay, how are we doing this? If people aren't reading newspapers as much, are we doing magazines more? Are we using our websites? Are we developing that podcast we've been talking about for 5 years? Are we really sharing on social media and being with the people where we need to be? Are we on TikTok? Are we doing memes? There are all these ways now in which the good news of of Jesus Christ can be shared. It's a really, so it's a challenging time of transition, but it's also a fantastic opportunity to develop new skills and to grow in new ways and to share our mission ever more with the world.
Amen again. I can only hope that will be the case. And that is, certainly a big proponent of that. There's no platform that I don't think we should be on, because it's important that people realize that the Catholic Church is relevant to, in everyday life. It's, we are not just an entity that you go to on a Sunday or just Christmas and Easter. We're always there, and we're there to help you. We're there to do good work, and mostly just to keep Jen Mauro entertained, though. She enjoys being entertained by all of us crazy Catholics.
Entertained, huh?
And she's got nothing to say.
I'd like to say,
all right, well, thank you.
Bringing the truth.
That's right. Well, thank you all for joining me today. And to our listeners, we'll catch you again next week. See you, everybody.